Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and let me ask you something that might just change the way you look at pocket change forever. What if I told you that a simple penny, one that you could find rolling around in your car's cup holder or tucked away in an old coffee can in your garage, could be worth $4.9 million? I'm not talking about some ancient gold coin from a sunken pirate ship or a rare artifact from a forgotten civilization. I'm talking about a 1969 D Lincoln cent. A coin that was minted right here in the United States. A coin that millions of Americans handled without a second thought. And yet one specific version of this penny sold for an absolutely mind-blowing, life-changing amount that would make even the wealthiest collector's jaws drop to the floor. This isn't just a story about money, folks. This is a story about how a tiny mistake, an error so small you'd need a magnifying glass to see it, turned an ordinary 1-cent piece into one of the most valuable coins in American history. And here's the kicker. There could be more of them out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone like you to discover them. Now, before we dive deep into the incredible story of this legendary 1969 D penny, I want you to understand something crucial. This video isn't just about one amazing coin. Oh no. Because after I reveal everything about this nearly $5 million penny, we're going to explore another coin from the early 1980s that has its own shocking story. A coin that collectors are desperately hunting for right now. A coin with a value that will absolutely blow your mind. So make sure you stick around until the very end, because what I'm about to share with you about that second coin might just be the information that turns your spare change into a small fortune. So let's talk about the 1969 D Lincoln cent and why this particular penny became the stuff of legends in the numismatic world. You see, 1969 was just another year in American coin production. The Denver Mint was churning out hundreds of millions of pennies bearing that little D Mint mark, and these coins flooded into circulation across the country, used to buy candy bars, dropped into parking meters, tossed into piggy banks, completely ordinary in every single way, or so everyone thought. The Lincoln cent itself had been around since 1909, featuring the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse since 1959, and by 1969 these pennies were so common that nobody gave them a second glance. But deep within the Denver Mint, something went terribly, wonderfully wrong during the production process, and this mistake would create what numismatists now call one of the holy grails of error coins. You see, the 1969 D penny that's worth millions isn't just any regular penny. It's a Doubled Die Obverse error, and to understand why this is so incredibly valuable, you need to understand what a double die actually is and why it's one of the most sought-after errors in all of coin collecting. During the minting process, a die is created to stamp the design onto blank coin planchets, and this die has to be hubbed multiple times to create a sharp, clear image. Now, if the die shifts even slightly between these hubbing impressions, you get what's called a double die, where parts of the design appear twice, creating a ghostly doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye on the finished coin. The 1969 D Doubled Die Obverse penny shows dramatic doubling on the date, on the word liberty, and on the phrase "In God We Trust." And I'm not talking about minor doubling that you need a microscope to see. I'm talking about doubling so pronounced, so obvious, that once you know what to look for, you can spot it from across the room. The letters appear to have a shadow, a second impression that makes them look thick and bold. And this doubling is what separates a common 1-cent coin worth exactly 1 cent from a numismatic treasure worth millions. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. The United States Mint, when they discovered this double die error, they tried to destroy all the coins that had been struck with it. They pulled it from production immediately. They attempted to melt down or otherwise eliminate these error coins because they didn't want imperfect coins circulating among the public. But as often happens with these situations, a few of these pennies escaped, they slipped through the cracks, they made it into circulation, and they ended up in the pockets and purses of regular Americans who had absolutely no idea they were carrying around a future fortune. Now, you might be wondering how many of these 1969 D Double Die pennies actually exist today. Well, folks, that's the million-dollar question, quite literally, because nobody knows for sure, And that uncertainty, that mystery, is part of what drives the value through the roof. Experts estimate that fewer than 50 examples exist in all grades combined, and of those, only a tiny handful are in pristine, uncirculated condition. Most of the surviving examples show wear from circulation because they were spent like regular pennies before anyone realized what they were. The first documented discovery of this error happened in the late 1970s, when a sharp-eyed collector named Bob Miller was going through rolls of pennies and noticed something odd about one of his 1969 D cents. The doubling was so obvious that he immediately knew he had found something special, something that would change his life forever. He had the coin authenticated by professional grading services, and when word got out about this discovery, the coin collecting community went absolutely crazy. Everyone started checking their pennies. Coin shops were flooded with people bringing in bags of cents, hoping to find their own double-die treasure. And while a few more examples were discovered over the years, the 1969 Doubled Die Obverse remained incredibly, impossibly rare. Fast forward to the auction records, and this is where things get truly mind-blowing. In various auctions over the decades, examples of the 1969 Doubled Die Obverse have sold for increasingly astronomical amounts, with the highest-grade examples commanding prices that make even seasoned coin dealers shake their heads in disbelief. And the record sale that I mentioned at the beginning, that $4.9 million sale, represents the absolute pinnacle of what this coin can achieve when you have a perfect storm of rarity, condition, and collector demand. Now, let me tell you about the specific characteristics you need to look for if you're going to search for this coin yourself. Because knowledge is power, and knowing what to look for could literally make you rich. First, check the date. The 1969 should show clear, strong doubling where each digit appears to have a shadow or a second impression slightly offset from the first. Then look at the word Liberty, especially the letters Birdie, which should show very obvious doubling, making them appear thick and bold. And finally examine In God We Trust, where the doubling should be visible on every single letter, creating that distinctive doubled appearance that's the hallmark of this error. The mint mark D should be present below the date, confirming it was struck at the Denver Mint. And the overall coin should be on a copper planchet, brown or red-brown in color depending on how much circulation wear it has. Now here's something absolutely critical that you need to understand. There are many fake double die coins out there. Scammers and counterfeiters know that this coin is worth millions, so they create artificial doubling through various means. They might strike a coin twice mechanically. They might alter photographs to make normal coins appear doubled. They might even create completely counterfeit coins from scratch. So if you think you've found a 1969 Doubled Die Obverse, you absolutely must get it authenticated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. Don't rely on your own judgment alone. Don't trust random experts on internet forums. Get that coin slabbed and certified because that's the only way to confirm its authenticity and unlock its true value. The story of the 1969 Doubled Die is a perfect example of why error coins are so fascinating and valuable. They represent mistakes, accidents, imperfections in a system designed to produce millions of identical coins, and yet these mistakes become treasures. They become valuable precisely because they're different, because they're rare, because they survived when they shouldn't have, and that narrative, that story of survival against the odds, resonates deeply with collectors and investors alike. Think about it. This coin started its life as a mistake, something the mint wanted to destroy, something considered defective and unwanted, and now it's worth more than most people's houses, more than luxury cars, more than fortunes that people spend their entire lives building. All because of a slight misalignment during the die hubbing process, all because of a tiny error that lasted just a brief moment during production before being corrected, all because a few examples slipped through quality control and made it into the hands of the public. The 1969 Doubled Die Obverse penny has appeared in some of the most prestigious coin auctions in the world. It's been featured in numismatic publications and documentaries. It's been analyzed and studied by experts who marvel at the clear, bold doubling that makes it so distinctive, and every time one comes up for sale, it creates a frenzy of bidding as collectors compete for the chance to own this piece of minting history. I want you to imagine for a moment what it would feel like to discover one of these coins. You're going through an old collection, maybe cleaning out a relative's estate, maybe just checking the coins in your possession out of curiosity, and suddenly you spot it, that telltale doubling on Liberty, that shadow on the date, that unmistakable thickening of "I in God we trust." And your heart starts racing because you realize you might be holding a multi-million-dollar coin in your hands. You rush to get it authenticated, you wait anxiously for the results, and when that grading service confirms it's genuine, when they seal it in that protective holder with the grade and certification number, your life changes forever just like that because of a penny. The 1969 Doubled Die Obverse is also a perfect example of why you should never throw away old coins or spend them without checking them first. How many of these valuable pennies were spent at face value, dropped into tip jars, used to pay for parking, lost between couch cushions, all because the person holding them didn't know what they had? How many potential millionaires walked right past their fortune because they didn't take 5 minutes to examine their coins? It's a sobering thought, but it's also an exciting one, because it means that right now, at this very moment, there could be valuable coins in circulation, sitting in someone's pocket, waiting in a dusty old jar, hiding in a forgotten coin collection, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. The technical aspects of the 1969 Double Die are fascinating from a numismatic standpoint. The doubling is classified as a Class 1 double die, which is the most dramatic and valuable type of doubling, created during the hubbing process when the die shifts significantly between impressions, and you can actually see the separation between the doubled images, making it what experts call machine doubling or hub doubling, which is distinctly different from the worthless strike doubling or mechanical doubling that occurs when a coin shifts during the striking process and creates a flat, shelf-like doubling that adds no value whatsoever. The 1969 Double Die has been extensively photographed and documented, with close-up images showing the exact nature of the doubling, and these images serve as reference points for collectors and authenticators who need to verify potential discoveries. Now, remember what I said at the beginning, this video isn't just about the 1969 penny, as incredible as that coin is, because I've got another coin to tell you about, a coin from the early 1980s that has its own amazing story, its own astronomical value, and its own dedicated following of collectors who would do almost anything to add one to their collection. That coin is waiting for us next, and trust me, you're going to want to hear every word of what I have to say about it. So don't go anywhere, don't click away, because what's coming up next is going to be absolutely incredible. But before we move on to that next coin, let me just remind you one more time about the 1969 Doubled Die Obverse, this nearly $5 million penny that proves beyond any doubt that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, that mistakes can become masterpieces, that pocket change can become life-changing fortunes, and that anyone, anywhere, at any time, might just stumble upon a discovery that would make them wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. So check those pennies, examine those dates, look for that doubling, and who knows? Maybe you'll be the next person to discover one of these legendary coins and join the ranks of those lucky few who turned a single cent into millions. Last, the 1981 D1 cent. Now, if you thought the 1969 D penny was impressive with its nearly $5 million price tag, buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you about this 1981 D Lincoln cent is going to knock your socks clean off. And here's the thing that makes this coin particularly exciting. It's newer than the 1969 D, which means there's an even better chance that examples are still out there in circulation, still hiding in penny jars, still waiting in old piggy banks, still rolling around in dresser drawers across America. And this coin has sold for an absolutely staggering $2 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever minted in the modern era. Think about that for a second. A coin that was struck just over 40 years ago. a coin that many people reading this remember from their childhood, a coin that was produced in the era of MTV and arcade games and personal computers. This coin is now worth enough money to buy a luxury home, to retire comfortably, to completely transform someone's financial situation, all because of an error that happened during the minting process at the Denver Mint. The 1981 D penny represents a particularly interesting period in American coinage history because by 1981, the United States Mint was dealing with significant economic pressures. Copper prices had been rising dramatically throughout the 1970s, and by the early 1980s, the melt value of the copper in a penny was approaching and sometimes exceeding the face value of the coin itself, which created a bizarre situation where the metal in a 1-cent coin was worth more than 1 cent. This led to concerns about people hoarding and melting pennies for their copper content, and it ultimately led to the Mint's decision in 1982 to switch from solid copper pennies to copper-plated zinc pennies, a change that would reduce the cost of producing pennies but would also create fascinating transitional errors and varieties that collectors prize today. But the 1981 D penny we're talking about, this $2 million specimen, isn't valuable because of its metal composition. No, this coin is valuable because of a spectacular minting error that occurred during production, an error so dramatic, so visually striking, that it's considered one of the most important error coins of the entire 20th century. The 1981 D penny in question is what's known as a Type A reverse double die, and specifically, it's the most dramatic example of this variety ever discovered, with doubling so extreme that you can see it clearly with the naked eye, no magnification required, and this doubling appears on the reverse of the coin on the Lincoln Memorial Building, making it instantly recognizable to anyone who knows what to look for. Now, let me explain exactly what makes this particular 1981 D cent so special and so valuable. On the reverse of the coin, where the Lincoln Memorial is depicted with its iconic columns, there should be a clear, sharp image of this memorial, but on the double die variety, the entire memorial appears to be doubled. The columns show clear separation and doubling. The inscriptions 1 cent and United States of America show pronounced doubling. And the effect is so dramatic that the coin almost looks like it was struck twice, like someone took the die and shifted it just slightly before striking the coin a second time. This creates a ghostly shadow effect, a doubling that makes the memorial appear to have depth and dimension that normal coins don't have. And collectors absolutely go crazy for this variety because it's so visually impressive, so obviously different from a normal coin, that even non-collectors can appreciate its uniqueness. The story of how this error occurred is fascinating from a technical standpoint. During the die production process at the Denver Mint in 1981, when they were creating the dies that would be used to strike millions of pennies, something went wrong during the hubbing process. The master hub that creates the dies was pressed into the working die multiple times, and between these impressions there was a slight shift, a misalignment that created this doubled image. And then this flawed die was put into production and used to strike an unknown number of pennies before someone at the Mint noticed the problem and pulled the die from service. The question that has haunted collectors for decades is this: how many 1981 D double die reverse pennies were actually struck before the error was caught? The estimates vary wildly, with some experts suggesting that only a few thousand coins were produced, while others believe the number could be higher. But what everyone agrees on is that compared to the billions of pennies struck that year, the double die variety is incredibly, impossibly rare, and finding one is like winning the lottery. The first documented discovery of this variety happened in the early 1980s, shortly after the coins were released into circulation, when alert collectors began noticing these distinctive doubled reverse pennies showing up in their searches through rolls of cents, and word spread quickly through the numismatic community that a major error had been discovered, an error that rivaled the famous double dies of years past, and suddenly everyone was checking their 1981 D pennies, hoping to strike it rich. What makes the 1981 D double die reverse particularly appealing to collectors is the combination of factors that determine coin value. rarity, demand, and visual appeal. And this coin scores high marks in all three categories. It's genuinely rare, with probably fewer than 10,000 examples existing in all conditions, and possibly far fewer than that. It's in extremely high demand because it's from a relatively recent year that many collectors remember, making it feel accessible and exciting rather than ancient and untouchable. And it has tremendous visual appeal because that doubling is so obvious, so dramatic, so perfect for photographing and displaying, that it's become an iconic image in the world of error. Coins. The $2 million sale that I mentioned at the beginning represents the absolute top of the market for this coin. A perfect specimen in gem uncirculated condition, graded MS67 or MS68 by a professional grading service, with full red color and no spots or marks. A coin that represents the absolute finest example of this variety that could possibly exist. But here's the exciting part: even lower grade examples, coins that show circulation where coins that aren't perfect, these coins still sell for thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands, depending on their condition. A well-worn example in fine or very fine condition might sell for $5,000 to $10,000. An extra fine example could bring $20,000 to $40,000, and uncirculated examples start in the six-figure range and climb rapidly from there as the grade increases. I want you to understand something crucial about this coin. Unlike some rare coins that require expert knowledge to identify, unlike subtle varieties that need magnification and years of experience to spot, the 1981 Doubled Die Reverse is something that you can learn to recognize relatively easily, and once you know what to look for, you can check your pennies quickly and efficiently, making this one of the most accessible treasure hunts in all of coin collecting. Here's exactly what to look for. First, make sure you have a 1981 penny with a D mint mark below the date, confirming it was struck at Denver. Then flip the coin over to the reverse and examine the Lincoln Memorial carefully. Look at the columns. They should show clear, obvious doubling where each column appears to have a shadow or a second impression, creating a thick, bold appearance. Then check the words 1 cent at the bottom of the memorial. The letters should show pronounced doubling, especially visible on the letters E, C, and T, where the doubling creates a clear separation between the doubled images. And finally, examine United States of America across the top, where the doubling should be visible on multiple letters, creating that same thick, shadowed effect. If you see all of these characteristics together, if that doubling is obvious and clear, if it's present across multiple parts of the design, then you might just have found yourself a small fortune. But remember what I said earlier about authentication. Get it certified by PCGS or NGC before you get too excited, because counterfeits and altered coins do exist, and the only way to confirm you have the real deal is to get that professional opinion and that certified grade. The 1981 Doubled Die Reverse has an interesting place in numismatic history because it represents one of the last major double die errors before the mint implemented new die production techniques that made such errors far less likely to occur. By the mid-1980s, the mint had adopted single-squeeze hubbing technology, which dramatically reduced the occurrence of double dies, making errors like the 1981 D increasingly rare and impossible to replicate in modern production. This means that coins like the 1981 Doubled Die Reverse are not just rare. They're historically important. They represent the end of an era in American coin production. They're among the last of their kind, and that historical significance adds yet another layer of value and desirability for collectors who want to own a piece of minting history. The auction records for this coin are truly impressive. Over the years, as more examples have been discovered and graded, as the population of known specimens has been documented, we've seen steady price increases that reflect growing demand and recognition of this variety's importance. And the top-tier examples, those perfect or near-perfect uncirculated coins with full original red color, they've sold at major numismatic auctions for prices that make headlines, that create buzz in the collecting community, that inspire new generations of collectors to start checking their pennies in hopes of finding their own treasure. I've heard stories, amazing, life-changing stories of people who found these coins in the most unexpected places. One famous story involves a woman who was rolling pennies to take to the bank. She was going through bags of coins that had accumulated over years, and she noticed something odd about one of the 1981 D pennies. She couldn't quite put her finger on what was different, but she set it aside. She did some research online, she compared it to images of the double die variety, and sure enough, she had found one. And that coin, even though it showed some circulation wear, sold for over $30,000, completely changing her financial situation during a difficult time in her life. Another story involves a young man who inherited a coin collection from his grandfather. He wasn't particularly interested in coins. He was planning to just spend the pennies and maybe keep a few of the older coins, but a friend suggested he check the collection carefully first, and buried in several rolls of 1981 D pennies, he found two examples of the double die variety, one in circulated condition and one in uncirculated condition, and when those coins were authenticated and sold, they brought in enough money to pay for his entire college education. These stories aren't fairy tales, folks. They're real, they're documented, they happen more often than you might think, and they could happen to you if you take the time to check your coins carefully and thoroughly. The technical aspects of identifying the 1981 D Doubled Die Reverse are actually quite interesting from a numismatic perspective. The doubling is what's called a hub doubling or Class 1 doubled die, which occurs during the die production process when the hub shifts between impressions, and this creates a clear, raised doubling where you can see two distinct images separated by a small gap. And this is completely different from worthless mechanical doubling or strike doubling, which occurs when a coin shifts during striking and creates a flat, shelf-like doubling that adds no value to the coin whatsoever. Learning to distinguish between valuable hub doubling and worthless mechanical doubling is an essential skill for any penny searcher. And while it might seem complicated at first, with a little practice and study, you can train your eye to spot the difference instantly. The 1981 D Double Die Reverse has been extensively photographed and documented in numismatic literature, with detailed close-up images showing every aspect of the doubling, and these reference images are invaluable for collectors who want to confirm their finds, who want to compare their coins against known examples, who want to understand exactly what they're looking for when they search through their pennies. The coin has been featured in popular numismatic publications like Coin World and Numismatic News. It's been included in price guides and reference books. It's been analyzed and studied by experts who have documented its characteristics down to the smallest details. And all of this information is available to you, accessible through books, websites, and online forums where experienced collectors are usually happy to help newcomers learn the ropes. Now, here's something that really excites me about the 1981 D Double Die Reverse. Unlike coins from the early 20th century or the 19th century, which are often found only in established collections or at high-end auctions, this coin is recent enough that examples could still be anywhere. They could be in active circulation, although that's becoming less likely as time passes. They could be in old coin collections that haven't been properly examined. They could be in estate lots, in attic finds, in forgotten drawers and jars, and every time someone takes the time to search through old pennies, there's a chance, a real, legitimate chance, that they could discover one of these valuable varieties. The population reports from PCGS and NGC, the two major grading services, show that while hundreds of examples have been certified over the years, the majority of these are in lower grades, showing circulation wear, which means that high-grade examples are incredibly rare, and that top-tier specimens in MS-67 or MS-68 condition are so scarce that they command those astronomical six-figure and seven-figure prices when they appear at auction. The story of the 1981 D Double Die Reverse is also a reminder of how important it is to stay informed about coin varieties and errors. When this variety was first discovered, Most people had no idea it existed. They were spending these coins at face value, dropping them in toll baskets, using them for parking meters, and fortunes were literally being thrown away out of ignorance. But as word spread, as collectors became educated, as the variety was publicized and documented, people started checking their coins, and more examples were discovered and preserved. And now this variety is well known enough that most serious coin collectors are aware of it and actively search for it. The impact of finding one of these coins goes beyond just the monetary value. Imagine the thrill of discovery, the rush of excitement when you realize you found something genuinely rare and valuable, the satisfaction of knowing that your diligence and careful examination paid off, and then the joy of either adding that coin to your own collection as a centerpiece, a trophy, a conversation starter, or selling it and using the money to pursue your dreams, to pay off debts, to invest in your future, to help your family, to do something meaningful with this unexpected windfall. The 1981 Doubled Die Reverse represents everything that makes coin collecting exciting. The hunt, the discovery, the history, the potential for finding value where others see nothing, and the connection to a moment in time when a mistake occurred at the mint and created something that would become treasured and sought after for generations. As I bring this discussion of the 1981 Doubled Die Reverse to a close, I want to emphasize one final, crucial point. This coin is out there, somewhere, waiting to be found, and while the examples in gem uncirculated condition might be locked away in collections or safety deposit boxes, there are certainly still examples in lower grades sitting in old coin jars, hiding in estate boxes, waiting in accumulations of pennies that haven't been properly searched, and finding even a well-worn example could mean thousands of dollars in your pocket, money that appeared seemingly out of nowhere, value that was hiding in plain sight all along. The $2 million sale represents the absolute pinnacle of what this coin can achieve, but even more modest examples are worth more than most people earn in months of work, and that potential, that possibility, should inspire you to take a closer look at your pennies, to spend a little time examining your coins, to learn what to look for and how to spot these valuable varieties, because you never know. That next penny you pick up could be the one that changes everything, the one that proves that fortunes really can be found in the most unexpected places. The one that turns you from someone who spends pennies into someone who profits from them. The 1981 Doubled Die Reverse is a testament to the enduring appeal of error coins, to the fascination with varieties and mistakes, to the thrill of the hunt and the joy of discovery. And it stands as proof that even in modern times, even with advanced technology and quality control, remarkable errors can still occur, can still slip through into circulation, can still create opportunities for alert collectors and lucky finders to discover something truly special, something truly valuable, something that connects them to the rich tradition of numismatics and the endless surprises that coins can provide.